When we talk about women of change in politics making a difference, you go from Condoleezza Rice, from Elijah Ransom Kuti, to even Joyce Banda, and even Ellen Sirleaf Johnson of Liberia. Women in politics have become an agenda that has been most thriving in every Nigerian mind, especially that of the women. Gender Agenda is a women empowerment political talk show that seeks to address the state of nationhood, governance and policy making for the Nigerian woman. It seeks to look at the ambiguity in gender affiliation, especially with political parties, and the representation of the Nigerian woman for and in politics. Gender Agenda, Women Arise, exclusively on AIT. My name is Adora and this is Gender Agenda. You're welcome to Gender Agenda today. Now we're going to do something really a bit off the track. Last week we spoke to Honorable Abike Dabiri, and she represents the Ikorodu constituency, and we heard her in her contribution of thoughts. Her expressions were vivid. This week we're going to be looking at the role of funding for women in politics, and again the role of men's support for women in politics. Now it will interest you that on February 24, 2014, a convention of women, female stakeholders came together with the INEC, UNDP, and a lot of all of the support systems that talk about participation of women in politics, and they talked about issues concerning mainstreaming and gender alignment when it comes to participation. Now, one thing they said was that funding was a key issue, representation was another key issue, and campaigning was another issue, especially from the rural perspective. Earlier on in the week, I spoke to a man, well, I call him one of the most humble men alive, especially when you're talking about men in power. He is unassumptuous and quite modest in his attitude. I spoke to Governor Emmanuel Eweta Odoa, Governor of Delta State, and I asked him a few questions about gender and, of course, women participating in politics and the funding. This is what he had to say. You're welcome to Gender Agenda.
Thank you very much.
And happy birthday too.
Thank you.
Yes, it's past 2060. I don't think you look a day older, over 25. Well, that's to say. All right, now let's look at your tenure so far. In fact, when you look at the history, let's look at all the states in the South and of course what they have done. Look at the history of development and women. A lot of people would arguably say that, you know, the management of the affairs that you have put in your administration has made sure that women have been the focal point of your administration. What made you consider that? Let's start from the Ministry of Women Affairs. We remember the WOFI, the Delta State microcredit scheme for women, which over 121 million naira and above has been given to rural women. What inspired that?
Well, for any society to develop, for any state, any country to develop, special attention must be paid to women, because the two focal groups for development are women mainly, then the youth. If you're able to take care of the women and you're able to take care of the youths, then the sky is the limit for any form of development. And don't forget that when life begins, it's actually the responsibility of the woman, you know, to keep that life for at least, or sometimes 9 months. So it is very key that we have a lot of focus on women.
Now, I know that on October 17th, of course, your forms were bought this year, nomination into the Senate and all of that. And, you know, people have been saying it's about time history will be made if you go into the Senate, because when we saw you visit in Solupo, and that during the period when all of this was done, you said something clear, that it was about time that the people at the National Assembly, even at the State Assembly, should think of women development. But let's come to the political angle. Now, a lot of people will say women understand women, and they will speak the voice of women. Yes, the schemes and the microfinance outfits and the development, the agricultural, infrastructural development side to it and all of that, etc., is good. But when you look at politically, what is the response for equity in representation by women for women in Nigeria? Maybe let's start from Delta State as well.
Well, I'm not one of those who believe that elective offices should be gender-based. I believe that elective offices should be based on capacity. And whether you believe it or not, a lot of women, have capacity to win elections. But although there are challenges, more challenges for the women than sometimes than the men. But if they put their mind to it, they should be able to win elections and occupy offices. Then two, I don't believe that the cause of women will be better handled by women in the legislature. Because you see, through life, all through life, from beginning of creation, the cause of women have always been pursued by I believe better by men, So if there are issues that affect women, men can handle it. It doesn't require a woman to be there to be able to deal with it. So, but coming back to Delta, what's the situation right now? What I can say is that it was not very good, in terms of elective offices, but it's improving. From just one person in the legislature in 1999 or so, now we have up to about 5 or 6 in the House of Assembly. From one in the local government council election, now we have 4. In local government, these are elective offices. So there's a lot of improvement in terms of women participation in elective offices. But of course, for the appointive offices, that really depends on who is on seat. And we've had a lot of women coming into position. And I keep saying, one thing I must give to women, and thank God, we had an American president and a British prime minister who were in Nigeria some time ago, and they confirmed this, that George Bush in particular, he said, if you have a difficult task, either as a president, as a governor, I need somebody that can give you results from that task, better give it to a woman. Indeed. It's not as if men cannot, but if you have 10 women, 8 out of the 10 will be able to deliver results on that. But if you have 10 men, maybe 5 out of the 10 will be able to deliver to give you that result.
This is Gender Agenda. All right, now when you got into office in May for the first time, on the 29th, 2007. You've been out initiative before that when you were first a commissioner, for health, and then SSG. A lot of your strides was more people-based. You were very passionate about alleviating poverty and taking people out of conjecture. When you talk about, when you look at the whole picture of Nigeria, you hear people say $1, believe you, with beyond $1 a day, the average Nigerian, which I think is admirable, looking at this administration. But when you come back to politics, I know that your Congress just held, and it was peaceful and it was quite successful. And one of the things you said was, we should learn to still remember that there is friendship after all of this politicking. Yes, exactly. And that, what's most important is a peaceful atmosphere. Now, last week I happened to have had the privilege of Honorable Abike Dabiri, and she said something. She said, the political space for women is getting tougher. The violence and the rancor, so to speak, is not encouraging even women who have the capacity to come out. Do you think that actually there still is that sense of, rancor and rivalry and political antics going on for women to be able to contest in this election? Because we've not even seen any woman coming out proudly to say, okay, you know what, I want to run for president, I want to run for governor.
There's a woman who I think she's going to pick her.
She's going to pick her form, but unlike the male counterparts, what I'm trying to say is that unlike the male counterparts, where we see the loud atmosphere of the campaign and the barrage of friends who are coming out in mass support, the women are more silent, and gradually coming into play. What do you think is effectual to this? What do you think?
First, I must advise women. It's not as bad as it's not as scary as it's been painted. I respect the views of Honorable Abike, who has really seen it several times, and has been through very tough times. And she's quite tough. I can withstand the toughness. It's just for women who want to contest election, see themselves as contesting election on the same platform with men. You see, when they bring in feminism, it becomes a problem. But when they see themselves as aspirants or contestants, not seeing themselves as women contestants, and that is why sometimes I'm against this women picking funds free of charge. You know, it doesn't really give you the motivation.
But then where is the capital? I mean, 22 million naira, 15 million naira. Who would adequately have that funding? I mean, you were supported by the J3, and that is both the so-called the Shekiri and the Jaw Group all together, and that's maybe because you're the chairman. Now, you're talking about a woman who perhaps does not even have up to 3 million naira in her account, but has the capacity to work. Where is the platform for funding? Because if you're saying they shouldn't be given the free mandate or free tickets.
In fact, if a woman wants to contest election and she wants to raise the fund, she will raise more funds than a man. You know, because somehow the men have sympathy. I know this because my wife contested election as local government chairman. And of course, most of the funding came from me because I haven't allowed her to go and contest. I didn't want her to fail, you know. So most of the funding came from me, their friends, and all that. I don't think funding is the main problem for women. Women, they raise funds easily to get whatever they want. Fundraising is not too difficult for women. If men see a serious woman, you know, contesting election, they are ready to fund her. But I think what happens is that we have this pull down syndrome amongst women themselves. And most of the women that have challenges, you know, the challenges come from fellow women, you know. And because the men know this, sometimes they use other women to come. Yeah, if I were consider election, for instance, with you, I will not directly confront you or pull you down, but I'll use another woman, you know, to pull you down.
This is gender agenda.
So the challenges sometimes is with the women themselves, and they need to know this. You know, they need to know this. And in terms of violence or whatever, it is not the contestants that go be violent. You know, they recruit people and to carry out the violence.
Okay, so in that atmosphere, do you think, looking at the violence, looking at the help your sister, pull your sister down syndrome, which is what you've explained now, what will be the ideal thing, the message to other women who want other women to come out? Because you said that ab initio capital is not a problem. It's not that if women want to raise funds, they can raise funds. And you have said, I mean, you knew your wife had the capacity and you could put the funds there, and so you drove it toward the end so that she could succeed. Now, for women who might have the capacity and out there doing the work but don't have the pool of friends, what about the idea of godfatherism or godmotherism, quote unquote? Do you think it still affects politics for women?
Oh yes. What is really godfatherism? Godfatherism, in quotes, you know, what it simply means is you have somebody up there who is more senior to you, who is older, probably, and more experienced, who is assisting you to open doors for you politically. And you know, women have such persons, you know, who assist them politically to open doors for them. What is my advice to women who are interested in politics? First, the women are better mobilizers than men, and they should go out there and really mobilize. Now, and I think there are, although I'm not too sure of the statistics, but I believe that there are more women voters because they are more patient than the men. You know, a woman can stay waiting to cast her vote. She can stay for 3, 4, 5 hours. But a man, 1 hour, 2 hours, the officials have not come. I see them taking off one by one, you know, going to do some other things. So at the end of the day, you have more women voting. And I believe that if women are able to mobilize fellow women, they will be very difficult to beat in a free and fair election. So they should concentrate on mobilizing their fellow women rather than trying to pull themselves down.
You will go into the Senate, and that is also a very big ambition because you're going to control constituencies and make sure that power is really given to the people. Do you think that with that picture in mind and knowing what you know, you would be more gender, will I say, sensitive to having the playing ground for women, especially looking at Beyond Oil project in Delta State?
Having a level playing ground for women in politics?
Yes.
Oh yes, there's a level playing ground for women in politics. Our government really, I would say, is more of a pro-women government than why do I say so? I believe that the women really, like I said from the beginning, are the core of development, because a woman carries a child for 9 months. And what I'm talking about, we're talking about human being. The development of human being starts from the woman's womb, the first day of conception to delivery. So you must take care of that woman adequately so that she can bring out a viable baby. You know, if a viable baby does not come out, it's a problem for society. Many of these people that are on the street today as armed robbers and all that, if you trace their history back to their to their bed, they may have something wrong at the time of delivery. You know, that is why one of the first things I did was to put in a free maternal care services so that women can be coming out with viable babies.
This is Gender Agenda. Now, coming back today, I am here sitting with Barrister Esther Uzoba, and she is a rights activist. When I talk about rights activist, I mean right. You've got to be right, or she will make you so wrong. And she has been, you know, she's been a voice for a lot of less privileged people who have had no one to speak out for them. When you're talking about inhuman actions against human beings, this is a woman who has been the voice. Now, today, I'm looking at the legal perspective. Barrister Rose, you're welcome on Gender Agenda.
Thank you very much. Same here. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure you listened to what the governor said earlier on.
Yes.
And then also looking at the issues that we spoke about, you know, off camera. We talked about the INEC Act in its own rights. We also talked about the Constitution. Now, when you look at both literature,
yes,
they are very masculine. And a lot of women seem to agree with that. Do you see that as, are you empowered with that? And also looking at what the governor said.
You see, the problem actually starts with the language of the law. You know, it gives the impression that this is a law made by men for men. You see, the whole language is gender biased in favor of men. If you look at the Constitution, for instance, you know, that word, the pronoun, the masculine pronoun, appeared 235 times in the 1999 Constitution. Now, only twice was the word woman used, only twice in the whole of the Constitution. Now, the same pattern with other laws, even the INEC Act. What does that do? First of all, for a reader, it just gives you the impression, oh, this thing is for men. If you even look at qualification for offices, if you want to be qualified, you know, for Section 131 says qualification, to, you know, for the office of the president. They say he shall be. Section 176 talks about the office of the governor. He shall be. You see, so it gives the impression that, oh, this is just for men. And it is wrong. Because it actually takes two hands. We have two wings. It takes two wings to fly. That impression, you know, must be eroded from the minds of children who are coming up, so that they don't have the impression that, oh, this is just a man's. No. One will understand that it's just it's an overshoot from that our patriarchal background. It's also playing out in the Constitution. But time, change is inevitable, and the time is now. Besides that, there are other provisions, constitutional provisions, that do not help women politically. So many of them. For instance, in countries like Rwanda, like South Africa, it took a positive legislation for Rwanda that now have almost 50%. Oh, yes. That's right. It took a positive legislation. We do not have such in the giant of Africa. We do not have such in this country that prides itself, oh, we are a big nation. There's no positive legislation that empowers a woman politically. Even in the party constitutions, the only post left for women is what? Women leader. What is that? Why can't we say half of the elective offices? Because that's our dream, gender parity. If we can make it, once we enforce, we can make it a matter of law that half of all elective posts, half should go to men, half should go to women. Fair enough. Where we are now, we need positive legislative action to drag women into the political system, so that we just don't talk the talk, we also walk it. But we need positive legislative action. Now, for INEC, women involvement in politics is not easy. The confusion, it reminds me of the Tower of Babel. Definitely. Why is there the confusion? Indigenship for a woman is not a settled fact. If a married woman, for instance, from Imo State, if she's from Imo State by birth and she's married in Zamfara, and all her life she has lived in Zamfara State, once it comes to representation at the federal level, the Federal Character Commission Act says, listen, you should go and represent your father's house. That is Section 2. Part 2 of the Federal Character Act, Establishment Act.
Well, we had sorry to interject you here. We had one of such rare occasions where Grace Bent of Adamawa,
yes,
ran in the stead within her husband's purview, coming from Adamawa,
yes,
by marriage.
Because they bent over backwards. On the basis of this law, Desi Danjuma was told to go back. And this same provision even affected the appointment of a Court of Appeal judge. It took the joint intervention of the National Assembly to say, no, this won't happen. The law presently as it is, our laws, they've not quite decided, oh, what do we do? So what is that? Why should it be that, oh, for the purposes of, federal character, federal character representation, a married woman should continue to lay claim to her? What is that? Meanwhile, all her life, all her married life, she's married. You know how it is with marriage in these parts. You are married and you are married. Everything about you is there. And then suddenly they say, oh, do you want to run for office? Oh, please go and represent your father's people. It's not fair. That is a clear-cut case of legal discrimination. Positive discrimination against women. In fact, it is calculated to ensure that they do not occupy any elective office. You see, that is number one. What about the issue of citizenship, for instance? Did you know that the law says if you are a man and you marry a woman who is not a Nigerian, that she can acquire, automatically she acquires Nigerian citizenship if she registered. But there is no corresponding registration for a Nigerian woman who marries a foreign man. It doesn't apply. I'm talking about Section 26 of the 1999. Why is that? So these are the things that they are weighing down. Yes, we have so much. So if our own constitution is weighing us down, have become an obstacle to the achievement of the role for the emergence of the woman, what more can we do? So if you now look at the electoral laws, they simply because it was meant pursuant to the constitution. Even though I'm aware that there's a gender policy, coming out from the INEC presently, but it is not here because we have a commission that is responsive. So they are working on their gender policy, guidelines for elections and all that. They realize that it is necessary But before now, nothing. So you find that the woman has to be everything. She's expected to be so much. She's the champion. You know, she's the one who keeps the home running. If she wants to run for an election, oh, she's the one who will do everything. Just one single human being.
But now, if you let's take a cue back from what the governor said. You know, you heard when he said, I'll say three things. I'll quote unquote. First is that not necessarily can a woman, you know, do a woman's job or help other women. Sometimes men are categorically better off in handling women affairs. And then he goes back to say, yes, he understands the need, but there are challenges. One of such challenges, of course, we have heard that countless of times. You are so bad by the thought that women seem to be the ones who actually pull each other down. Now, look at the certain women leaders of certain parties have only just occupied the positions, have not mentored any woman. What is the dangers in that?
You see, first of all, the issue is that the way, you know, the way this society is running presently, it does not. There's a misogyny that feeds, you know, breeds on quote and unquote apparent dislike of women for women. You know, so it's a currency, you know, that people use, and they are breeding it. Oh, it will always work. It will always work. The quote and unquote dislike of women for women. Politicians use it as a currency. You know, they sell it. They use it to cause division and all that. But you see, sisters are bridging gaps. Perhaps it will not, in this generation, maybe, you know, it will not really sink. But they're bridging gaps. You see, if you even go back in history, it wasn't always like that. Queen Amina of Zaria, of Zawza, she was a woman. She led an army. You understand? The Aba Women Riot was led by women, organized, came together and said, oh, this has to stop. When the men didn't even have the stomach to face the colonial masters.
This is Gender Agenda.
Women are better mobilizers than men, and they should go out there and really mobilize.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Well, you've heard it all. I think we will definitely keep up to speed with this next week. But trust me, 1869 May was the time when Elizabeth Cady came out with Susan Anthony, and they said enough is enough. And 62 women came out and said we will do what we call the Congressional Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which gave women a voice. And that is why you even see certain women in the parliament today. We can do that in Nigeria, not because we're looking for equality of women's sake, but because we're looking at equity in governance. My name is Adora Onyechere. Look at the Twitter handle, send us messages, the Facebook and the emails, and we will get right back to you. I'll see you again next week.